Okay, we now welcome on a very special guest. It is two-time World Cup champion, two-time Olympic gold medalist, two-time FIFA World Player of the Year, and now owner of Gotham FC, Carli Lloyd. How you doing?
I'm good. I know. It's pretty cool to have that last bit in the bio there now.
Yeah, so that's why you're here. So you are now an owner of the team that you played for. Can you explain like how this all, I mean, this is the dream of anyone, although I do own a little bit of Swansea, just so you know. No, I'm not joking. I do. So
that's
no
awesome.
big deal. Yeah, thank you. And we also
own the New Zealand Breakers.
And yeah, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we own a lot more teams than you, but that's okay. It's not a contest.
Yeah. All right, I'll have to.
It can be.
I'll have to see how I outdo you guys next time.
So how did it break down? Like, what made you be like, hey, I want to get into owning a team?
Well, I think we had sort of some changes that were happening last season, towards the second half of our season. We were regrouping a bit. They were making some changes and just really trying to better the whole team, on the field, off the field. So I obviously announced my retirement, and in speaking with one of the owners, Ed, and Tammy Murphy, who's the wife of the governor of New Jersey, there was just a conversation of, hey, we know you're going to be done playing, but do you have any interest in kind of staying involved in figuring out what that may look like? So we finished the season, got through the off season a little bit, and then just had, some conversations of, sort of being a bit of an ambassador and owning a bit of the team. And I thought it was, very intriguing because I've put so much time and energy on the field playing, but I still feel like there's so much more I have to give. And there's a lot of women that are kind of leading the charge for Gotham FC. So for me, it was a no-brainer to get involved.
That's awesome. Are you prepared for owning the team now? And then any slight stumble they have, now people are like, fucking Carli, just ruined this team.
Shit.
Well, you know what? Good thing is I'm not making all the really, really important decisions that are going on. So, hopefully I can just help. I could shed some of my wisdom that I've learned and just be around the team, because at the end of the day, all my former teammates, I have great relationships with them. So I want to see them do well, and I want to help in any way I can.
What was the main reason why you decided it was time to retire from playing the game? Were you just like, I'm bored. I've been too good for too long.
I've dominated everyone.
It's time. Yeah, let me give somebody else a shot.
I don't know. I mean, Tom Brady's back, so you never get bored of being great.
So are you saying you might come back? Maybe you'll hire yourself.
Ooh. Player
don't
owner.
have to pay yourself.
If I don't
as
see
owner.
what I'm liking, I may be like,
Yeah.
hey, I got to come back onto the field. No,
Yeah.
I am fully 100% retired, not unretiring. Although our April Fool's joke got people a little bit. Even my own sister was like, texted me, and she was like, if this is true, you're my sister, I'm going to be mad at you forever. And I'm like, no, I'm not coming back to play. But no, on the retirement front, I just knew that I wanted to go 4 cycles. So 4 Olympics, 4 World Cups. Obviously, Tokyo pushed that to another year, which was supposed to happen in 2020, finished up in 2021. I just had nothing left in me. I could have definitely gone, but to be able to dictate when I wanted to leave the sport, somewhat on top and feeling good still, for me, it just was time to pass the torch and live my life and enjoy things.
How different is it? You graduated college 2004, and then like you said, 4 cycles. How different is the women's national team and like just how everyone approaches it, and even the fans 20 years ago? Because it feels like this is the biggest growth that the team has ever had, and a lot of the players on the team have become household names, which maybe not was the case in years past.
Yeah, it's grown tremendously. I got on the national team in 2005, and the women, prior to me were fighting for guaranteed contracts. They were fighting for pregnancy leave, health benefits, all of those things. And here I am. I get a check for playing in 2 games, and I'm like, wow, I'm rich.
You're right.
But literally, there was a lot more that they were they were fighting for. And I remember the fans, we had maybe maybe 5,000 fans at our games. And so we kind of went through this several year. We didn't have a women's professional league at the time. That didn't come until 2009. And then 2011 World Cup. That, I would say, was when the trend started to become massive. Fans were jumping on board. We actually lost to Japan in the final.
Mm-hmm.
I missed a horribly shot PK. Not proud of, but I learned from that.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was my next question.
Yeah. What were you thinking?
It was terrible. It went really high up in the air in the stands. But we came home from that. We came to New York. We did some media, and we were being cheered as if we had won. And we're like, we didn't win. We got second place. So from that point on, we had been kind of riding this wave that was just building. You throw social media into it. And then once 2015 World Cup came around in Canada, I still think on Fox Sports, it was still the number one watched final in a World Cup. It was massive. And, it's been 16 years since we won a World Cup. Previous one was 1999. So the wave has just been kind of going since
America
then.
loves winners. That's you guys are so good that it's like, soccer's never going to be the most popular sport in America, but winning is fun. And I remember watching and being like, this is awesome. Winning is fun.
Everybody loves winning.
Yeah.
I also find that I like watching the women's game sometimes more than the men's game because you guys don't flop. There's no or there is some teams do, like the Brazilians occasionally.
Yeah,
they'll dive. And
but you get really mad at them, which shows like the game. Like, that's how we want to watch soccer in America. Like we get sick of seeing like the embellishment that takes place a lot of times in the men's game. They're trying to draw a penalty kick or whatever, but it's tough to watch sometimes. But when we see you guys like screaming at Marta because she's like flopping in the penalty box despite the fact she wasn't touched, I like that. Like I want to go to war for you guys. Like why do you think that the women they don't flop as much in the women's game?
I don't know. I think because we've just got that mentality of just, even for myself. There's probably been times where I could have just went down in the box, drew a PK, but it's just there's something about that edge of just trying to see the play out and not flopping. The flopping on the men's side did go through quite a bit of
it's bad.
It's really bad.
Yeah,
it's that.
It's gotten a bit better because they sort of have been changing the rules a little bit, and referees are giving cards out now for players that are doing it. But you don't see it too often on the women's side.
Yeah. Yeah. The flopping and the time wasting at end of games always drives me nuts. When it's like the last 30 minutes, soccer doesn't get played. And it's just, actively trying, like walking as slowly as you can to the ball and those type of things.
Yeah. Game management is big though.
Yeah.
We've rehearsed and practiced over the years of, hey, if the one thing is when a goalkeeper goes down, they don't have to go off the field.
Right.
So if there's something that needs to be said or communicated within, a World Cup final and you can't get the communication out in time, just have a little signal. The goalkeeper goes down, and we've done it. We've done it quite a few times with goal.
You can always just grab the back of your leg, pretend that you're having a cramp, and just sit down. There's not like a referee's not gonna be like, oh, you're faking a cramp. It's very tough to prove.
Yeah,
that.
It's true. And there's been often times where I'm like yelling at my keeper, and I'm like, "Why are you going down?" Mm-hmm. They're like, "It was a play. I had to."
Yeah. All right. So this is a loaded question. We watch soccer. I own a team, but like I said, I don't think soccer will ever be the number one sport in America. But what is it that like people who don't like soccer or who don't give it a shot? What do you think can like switch them over, being like, "Hey, this is a great game"? Is there anything that you can think of where if you met someone on the street and like, I don't like soccer, you're like, because I always am like, it's on in the morning a lot of times, and also it's exactly 2 hours. That's my big thing.
Yeah,
it's like exactly 2 hours.
No, it's a lot of time for people to just sit down and watch. That's why I don't think that just a random person is just going to tune in on a Saturday morning and watch the English Premier League or watch an MLS game. It's mostly fans and avid super soccer fans
Right.
that are watching these games. But it's just such a different culture. I mean, growing up in England, I got to play for Manchester City for 3 or 4 months there, and it is just such a culture. I mean, they grow up and it's like soccer. Here, there's just so many other sports, and America's sport here is the NFL,
Right.
football,
Right.
the other football.
Right.
But I don't know. It's exciting, and I think the games are a bit long, but there's some incredible things that go on in the game. I mean, defending, the tactics, scoring goals.
I've got a real dumb idea that actually I think could work because Americans as sports fans, our brains are very simple. And what the NFL has discovered how to do is they just take every score and they make it worth 6 points instead of 1. Why aren't goals worth 5 points? Or 6 points even?
And bigger goals.
Maybe 7 points.
We like scoring. That's really what it comes down to.
If a 2-0 game was 14-0, it's like, man, I missed a fucking shootout.
Yeah, right.
I can't believe I
That'd
didn't
be
tune in for
weird
that.
though. But then it's like, how do you count? Somebody that has goals. If I finished up my career with 134 goals, but some goals were worth more than others, like that would.
Well, your records are gonna unfortunately be
Explode.
screwed. Yeah. So sorry, you retired at the wrong time.
But
we do love scoring.
Yeah,
we need
love,
more scoring.
I just love points. I just
Yeah.
love seeing points on a scoreboard. It's that simple sometimes.
Yeah, I get it, but it would change the game a whole lot.
I also think someone needs to get good enough to just score every time from a corner kick. That would be so sick. I don't know why they don't just bend it in.
Yeah, it's definitely an art.
Yeah.
So you grew up outside Philadelphia, right? Mm-hmm. So I saw you tried out for the Eagles a couple years ago. Is that still like in the back of your head? Like, hey, maybe because you kicked 55-yarder?
I think so. Yeah.
Did anybody actually say from the Eagles or any other team like, hey, we're interested in bringing you in for a workout?
Oh yeah. A couple of teams were like, hey, you want to sign on for preseason, but I had soccer.
You get other stuff?
Well, now
Yeah, now you don't.
What do you think?
Now I don't. So there's a possibility. I mean, I can't say that I've been kicking a lot of soccer balls or footballs currently. But the thing is like, I know I can do it. I know that I've broken down my soccer technique for my entire career. And it's a little different, but it's a little similar.
Right.
So there'd be no different than to break down the technique for kicking. Mm-hmm. And that day was just merely for fun.
Yeah. I mean, 55 yards is no joke.
It's a bomb.
And I had a lot of distance still on that.
Yeah, would have been good from,
nice.
62?
Run it up. I like that.
We can get you a tryout with the Commanders. I'm on their fan ambassador program. You probably heard about that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I pull a considerable amount of sway with that organization if you're looking for a tryout.
All right.
Okay.
So
keep me
what's your favorite? Are you a fan of all Philly teams?
I am.
What's your favorite sport, not soccer?
I think it kind of changes. I would say that I watch a lot of NFL. I do tune in for the Eagles a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been a thing. My dad would watch all growing up, and I feel like, I was daddy's little girl. And I would just, sit down and watch as well. But I've gone to a bunch of Sixers games. Courtside's so fun.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Ben Simmons? Because I caught a little of that Philly accent that you have, and I just, whenever I catch a Philly accent, I just want to immediately ask the person, like, what do you think about Ben Simmons? Just be like, that fucking guy sucks.
That might be a loaded question. Look, the way that I have approached my career, like if people are going to talk bad about me, try to not enunciate that accent, I'm just going to stick it to them. I'm going to prove them wrong.
Right.
I love that. I love the pressure. I invite pressure. And it just feels so good when you got people talking a whole lot of smack about you and you're just like, hey, I'm just trying to be the best that I can be, improve every single day. And that's the thing with Philly. Philly fans are probably the hardest fans to play in front of. You don't ever want to piss them off. And Philly fans just want to see you working.
Yeah.
And just trying to be your best. So, yeah, it's a tough situation. I just think it's a generational shift with some athletes.
Definitely.
The mental toughness aspect of it is you got to just be tough.
Yeah.
Or at least try
You
to
gotta
shoot
grind.
the ball.
Yeah, shoot
try
the
to
ball.
dunk the ball. It's that simple. Like, at some point, sports break down to the point where us dumbasses that are watching it that are like, just dunk the ball, we actually become correct. But it's when it's about Ben Simmons, because like it's that simple. He just got afraid to shoot.
Yeah.
And then Philly was just kind of holding him accountable.
Which
for
is
that.
important
But
in basketball.
I love. Yeah, it is important.
Yeah.
I do love Philly fans. I think that it's the best sports town in the United States.
They're as real as they come, and they'll be the first to praise you and they'll be the first to try to tear you down. But if they see your effort and they see, you wearing your heart on your sleeve, they're all for it. I mean, Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah. Incredible.
Well, like that for me is someone who's just taken advantage of an opportunity that just came about from the Ben Simmons situation.
Yeah.
And he's ran with it. And he's a really fun player to watch.
What's the one thing that someone wrote about you or said about you that like motivated you? Because I mean, did people bash you?
Oh, people bashed me my whole career.
Yeah.
For 17 years. I think all the way up until I announced my retirement. And then I was like, wow, I'm getting a lot of love. And
where was this?
People are really
Just glad that you're gone.
So what was the main criticism? What was the criticism of your game that people would say, and you'd be like, fuck that, that's not at all how it goes?
Oh, it was a lot of things, It was just constant, she can't do this. She's a turnover machine. She's not, I don't know.
She missed that
a good
PK
two-way
against Japan.
player.
Yeah.
There was a, and I hate to highlight this article. 'Cause,
No, let's go.
You're highlighting people that probably don't deserve to be highlighted, but there was this article that came out right before the 2015 World Cup final. It was on SB Nation, and it was titled something, Carli Lloyd is the weirdest world-class athlete or something.
What?
And it just went through everything that I was not good at, according to what they thought. And I remember reading that before the final.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stick it to him. This is another thing that I can just, prove people wrong, and went and scored 3 goals in that final.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I was actually working at SB Nation in 2015. And when you said that there was a writer there that wrote something really shitty about you, I was like, wait, I don't think that was. But I remember this article. That's actually why I left SB Nation, because this article was so mean that I was like, I can't work for a publication like this. I'm joining Big Cat, and we're doing a podcast at Barstool.
Oh,
this is a
much
funny
respect to
article.
you.
I'm reading it right now.
Right?
This is
It's
a very weird article.
And I actually, had been successful up until this point.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I've scored a couple goals in Olympic finals, and
she will start against Japan on Sunday, and if you are a fan of the United States, she will piss you off. She will look utterly uncoordinated and touch the ball directly to Japan players at least a half dozen times in the first half. You will still wonder what the hell you're watching, how this is a world-class professional footballer, and if these mistakes will cost the Americans the World Cup. In roughly the 65th minute, she'll score a screamer from 25 yards, and the U.S. women's national team will win the World Cup because of it. So it's just basically a backhanded compliment, being like,
Oh, yeah.
you score clutch goals, but you suck otherwise.
Yeah,
Very weird.
The block button for Twitter,
Yeah.
even to this day, has come in very handy.
You can't block. You got to mute. Don't give them satisfaction.
What about other teams and other players? Like, I can tell you do have that like Philly chip on your shoulder a little bit, where.
Well, yeah, she just literally quoted an exact article headline from 2015.
Yeah, you use that as like motivation.
Yeah, I mean, I
So-
think that, and that's the thing, like, not to get back to the Ben Simmons thing, but just when athletes have an easy path and they don't really go through adversity from a young age and things aren't hard, I'm seeing it with some of the players that are coming up now in the soccer pipeline. It's no different. My journey was so hard. I mean, I wasn't pegged as the next best thing. I went to a small soccer college at Rutgers University compared to the UNCs and Stanfords and UCLA players. So no one had me on their radar. So I just had to, claw my way to the top slowly but surely. And it was hard. And that's the most rewarding part. As hard as it was, if you do it right on and off the field, in the end, it's literally the most rewarding thing.
So what was the most rewarding part about your career? If you were to pick, you had 2 World Cups, 2 Olympics, or was there something else that was more rewarding?
I just think the journey, everything. I mean, for me, the hard moments were the moments that really propelled me to these successful moments. It was everything. I mean, I think if you pull one thing out, my journey wouldn't be the way that it was.
Yeah, yeah. What about this is a dumb question, but sometimes you guys would play teams that were not up to snuff. I remember the 13-0 Thailand game in the World Cup. Is that fun or boring? Because it's like we all have that. Not to equate our lives to world-class athletes like you, but like when you're playing Madden on easy and it's like fun for a minute, and then you're like, this is kind of boring. Did you ever have that where it's like, well, this is kind of boring. It's 13-0.
Those games are tough, but when you're playing in a World Cup, it's easy to get up for those games. When it's a friendly, I know our women's national team just played Uzbekistan, 2 games, and they won 9-0, both of those.
Ooh.
But I think when you have the mindset of there's a bigger picture here, every training session, every game, no matter what it is, I always approached it as a World Cup final.
Yeah.
I was tackling in training, friendly games. I was till the very end, last whistle was blown. I was, sprinting to save a ball. So if you have that mindset, it's a little easier. The tough thing is when you have a player who switches on and off.
Yeah.
It's hard to all of a sudden switch on and be ready for those moments.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So would like the majority of your teammates say, Carli was a real prick in practice, but we needed that? Or were there like some relationships that you had where people could not handle that intensity?
I think players would basically say I was just ruthless.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that no matter what team I was on, whether it was a 5v5 team or whether it was, the starting group versus the non-starting group, and I'm on the non-starting group, I'm coming for you. Clean. I'm not going to do anything that's going to send anyone with a career-ending injury, but that kind of instilled the way the rest of the training sessions and games went. When you see someone tackling and the players that I looked up to, Shannon Box, Abby Wambach, all these players, they would run through a brick wall. So when you see those players doing that, you have to do it. You have to follow. So that's what I always tried to kind of help instill within the group.
Is it hard for the U.S. national team, this could be for men's and women's, but you spend the tryout phase competing against each other, I would assume, and like everyone's trying to get that spot on the roster, and then flipping the switch and being like, "Oh, we're friends now." Is that a difficult transition?
Very.
Yeah.
It's weird. We're all basically competing. There's 23 players that make a World Cup roster. There's 18 that make an Olympic roster, which they may be in the midst of changing that. So yeah, technically your teammates, you're supposed to have a camaraderie, but then you may be left off a roster. But for me, it was always, my competition was no one but myself. And when you start to compare and point fingers and say, oh, well, I'm better at this than that player, and well, she's a little bit better than me at that, you take yourself down a really, really mentally challenging road.
Right. And I know it happens in other sports. Obviously like NFL training camp, but at least in NFL training camp, there's, who the starters are all going to be kind of going into it. It's the edge of the roster. I feel like in soccer, you could be good 1 second and then the next second be like, oh, nope, they're over the hill.
Yeah, it's that's why I always tell people it's hard to get to the top, but it's even harder and harder and harder to stay there and to keep elevating your game. Because, for myself, the more success I had to keep pushing it on and on. I score a hat trick in a World Cup final and everyone's like expecting that all the time, which it doesn't happen all the time. But that's what's really hard. And that's what, you're going to kind of see over the course of, the next 5-10 years with some of these players, in particular on the women's national team. Who is going to be the most mentally tough to be able to withstand the highs, the lows, because one moment you may be feeling on top of the world, and then quickly you're going to be, falling down the mountain and having to get back up again. And there's so many different variables.
So if we're talking about passing the torch, who are we looking at on the women's national team right now? Who did Carli pass the torch to?
Mallory Pugh's doing really well. Happy to see. I feel like she's finally in a good place, and you've got the front three: Sophia Smith, Katarina Macario, who's playing in that number 9 position where I was playing. The likes of Lindsay Horan, Sam Mewis, Rose Lavelle, Ashley Sanchez.
That's our girl.
Mm-hmm.
Rose has been on the show, and she's also a Badger. I'm a Badger, so love Rose.
She was dominant in the last World Cup. She's just so fast.
Yeah.
She is. She's very silky smooth. But these players got to stay healthy. That's number 1. And it's a grind. That's why you say, what made you want to retire? I mean, I feel so less stressed in life.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I love the pressure. I was in the pressure cooker for 20 years. But there's just such a refreshing feel knowing, I'm not in the pressure cooker.
Yeah,
anyway.
and you own the team now. It's pretty good. That's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah.
You are the pressure cooker. You're no longer at it.
People are see you and they're like, oh, here comes the pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's that is the tell-all with the lengthy careers that people are going to have if they're able to withstand the mental aspect of the game.
Yeah.
What would you do to fix the U.S. men's national team? I know we made the World Cup this year, which is an improvement. I'm glad to see that we're actually in it this year. But and we've got like a good young team. Some are saying the golden generation. I don't know. But like, what would you do as a successful international soccer player? What do you see on the men's side, and you're like, this is how we need to fix this?
I don't think there's one thing. The men's World Cup has been around a lot longer than the women's World Cup. That's the history. And so the men are competing against other countries where soccer is the number 1 sport in their country. They grow up with a ball at their feet. Mm-hmm. Here in America, you got baseball, you got wrestling, football, basketball. There's so many other different sports. So what we're finding now with the men's team, a lot of these players are playing in Europe, which is good. And it's a younger generation. They're doing well. The qualifying, was not the easiest thing. It's very tough. It's very gruesome. But they have a favorable draw. So it's really up to them. I mean, I'm not too concerned with them getting out of the group. The knockout rounds are going to be interesting.
We have to win one of those games against Iran or whatever the team's going to be, Ukraine or Scotland.
Yeah,
and then pencil in
Ukraine,
England.
I wouldn't want that.
I wouldn't fuck with Ukraine either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mentally tough.
There's a lot more that Ukraine is obviously fighting for.
Yes. Yeah. All right, so I had one last question. This has been great. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's the Rhoback question. If you want some Rhoback gear, we have it for you. RHOBACK.com. Use promo code TAKE for 20% off your first purchase. Q-Zips, hoodies, all types of great gear at Rhoback.com. Most important question. I should have said this at the start, but I didn't want to ruin the interview if your answer is incorrect. Messi or Ronaldo?
I respect the amount of work that Ronaldo puts in.
I like you. Yep, this is good. This is good. This is going in a good direction.
Because he does. He
He
reminds me, kind of the way that I approach my career. I mean, he's top-notch pro. But
Yes.
Messi, I mean, what the guy's done on the field.
Yes.
It's magic. You don't see that in a player, and I don't know when and if we will ever see a player that is quite like Messi again. Mm-hmm. Maybe not in my generation or our generation.
You officially know soccer.
Yeah, Messi.
You know ball.
You know ball.
And I would love to see Messi go back to Barcelona if that's even possible.
Yes.
It's weird seeing.
He doesn't seem happy.
I don't like it when players switch teams later on in their careers. I get used to it, and as someone who barely watches any international club soccer, I get very confused when I see somebody wearing like a Paris Saint-Germain jersey or whatever.
I know, and
like
a different
42.
in number 30 too.
Yeah.
It's not right.
Yeah.
What about
It just was unfortunate how it happened.
What about on the women's side? Who's the GOAT?
That is to be determined.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because you're not retired yet.
Well, you got to prove it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to earn the GOAT label. I mean, no one's achieved anything yet. So in 10 years, maybe I'll come back on here and can let you know who my GOAT would be.
I say Mia. I think Mia's the GOAT.
Oh, so former players, not current
Yeah,
players.
yeah,
who
for-
are-
yeah, yeah, all time.
Oh, all-time
GOAT.
all-time GOATs. Oh, there's a ton. I mean, Michelle
Well,
Akers.
There's got to be one.
There's one
That's how it
GOAT,
works.
the greatest of all time.
I would say probably Michelle Akers.
Okay.
Yeah, just talk about somebody that would run through a brick wall, play on one leg if she had to. She scored in some of the biggest moments. She was definitely somebody I looked up to.
Okay. And you answered the question correctly. It's Messi over Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even close. It's like one is just stands outside the box and taps it in, and one is just, he makes love with the soccer ball.
El Mágico.
Hey, Ronaldo's done really well, though, throughout his career, the older he's gotten, to adjust his game.
Yeah, just making sure he takes every penalty kick. Yep. You're right.
He scored a free kick the other day.
He
Yeah,
did.
that's what he
I
does.
just pretended to not see that one.
Now take Messi and then add like 50 pounds to him, and then also have him do an 8-ball of cocaine before every game, and that's Maradona.
Yeah.
He's my GOAT.
Yeah.
I know, Maradona. I'm so happy and lucky that I was able to meet him several times.
Yeah.
And I actually, the one grateful thing that I have with Maradona is he megged me.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, I got megged by Maradona.
That's pretty
That's
cool.
nice.
Probably
Yeah.
one of my
That is
most
pretty
proudest
cool.
moments.
Yes, yes. Well, Carli, thank you so much for stopping by, and we appreciate it very much.
Yeah, it was great to chat with you guys.